Okay, class, today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Now, we've been talking about decimals, so this is our next step, our next phase. Okay, so the first thing I'd like for you to do is I want to see what you know about fractions. So I would like for you to draw me a picture of 5/8. Now, there's three main pictures that we come up with whenever we're looking at this. Okay, so if we have 5/8, what does that really mean? That means I've got 5 pieces out of a total of 8. Okay, now a fraction we need to remember is a comparison to part to whole. Okay, so there's really only two examples that are good examples. One is the pizza problem, where we take this one whole pizza, we chop it into 8 equally sized or close to equal size pieces, and we shade in 5 of them. Okay, so that is one example that is good. Another one is what I call the candy bar picture. So you can either take this and chop it into 8 pieces, or chop it in half and chop it in 4s like this, which gives us 8 total pieces. And again, we shade in 5 of them. Okay, that is the true meaning of a fraction, a part to whole relationship. Now, there are some others that some people have been doing in class that aren't quite right, but these are the two that are correct. Okay? Now, what if I took that and I changed it to, instead of 1 and 5/8, I did 2 and 5/8. I mean, instead of just 5/8, I did 2 and 5/8. Well, how would that change the picture? Well, we had the 5/8, which is what we just saw, but this 2 means that we would have 2 whole pieces with that. So we would have one whole piece, another whole piece, and then this third one chopped up into 8s, where we've colored in 5 of those. And then we would shade this one in and shade this one in. And that would be in the model of 2 and 5/8. Because we've got one piece plus 5/8 of another. So 2 and 5/8 really is an addition problem. Okay, so now let's review what we talked about in 5th and 6th grade. Okay, which is just plain old adding and subtracting regular fractions. Okay, so there's a few steps that we have to go through in order to add or subtract fractions. That's what I need to make sure that you remember how to do. So the first step that we must find when we're adding or subtracting fractions is we must find a common denominator. We have to make our bottom numbers look alike. So in each of these problems right here, you start with, you've got 8 and 12 right here. So you can go through the multiples of each one of those, and the first number that they have in common, that's the one that they share, that would be our common denominator. We call that the least common denominator. What I like to do is just go through the multiples of 12. I take the biggest one, I do 12 times 1, you get 12. Can I turn this 8 into a 12 using multiplication? No, we can't. So I do 12 times 2, we get 24. Can I turn the 8 using multiplication into a 24? Yes, you can. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my fractions and put a 24 on the bottom. Okay, if we were doing subtraction, it's the same thing. We go through our 5 times tables. 5 times 1 is 5. Can I turn the 3 into a 5? No. 5 times 2 is 10. Can I turn the 3 into a 10 using multiplication? No. 5 times 3 is 15. Can I turn the 3 into a 15? Yes. So our common denominator would be 15. So the first step is find a common denominator. The second step is change your numerator to match. Okay, so whatever I did to the bottom number, I've got to do the same thing to the top number when I changed it. So what did I do to this 8 to turn it to a 24? I multiplied by 3. So I do the same thing to the top number and get 9. What did I do to the 12? I multiplied it by 2 to turn it to a 24. So I need to multiply the 5 by 2 to get 10. Okay? Over here we multiplied by on this 5 to turn it to a 15. I multiplied by 3. So I multiply the 4 by 3 and get 12. This 3 I multiplied by 5. So I multiply the 2 by 5 to get 10. Okay, so the first step, find a common denominator. Second step, change your numerator to match. The third thing, add or subtract your numerators. Okay, so we're ready to do some work. Here I've got 9 24s, here I've got 10 24s, so that means I have 19 24s all together. Okay, so on this one, instead of adding, we subtract. Here I got 12 15s, I take away 10 of them, I only have 2 15s left. Okay, so the third step, or fourth step, I've actually already done. Okay, so we add or subtract our numerators, but then the next step is keep the new denominator. Once we've changed our denominator, we don't mess with it. We keep it the same. So this one I just brought the 24 across. This one I brought the 15 across, because that tells us what size piece we have and that we're dealing with. And then the last step that we go through is we simplify. Okay, and in these two questions, we really didn't have any simplifying that we needed to do. But if the top number and the bottom number had a common factor, then we would need to divide by those. Well, what would we do if we had a mixed number? Well, we would add one step in there. Okay, we'd still find a common denominator. We'd still change our numerator to match. We'd still add or subtract our numerators. We'd keep our new denominator. But the step that we would add in there is we would add in our whole numbers. And then we simplify. So let's see if we can try that. So here is one. The first thing we do is we find a common denominator. So we look at our 4 and our 8. And we ask, can I turn my 4 into an 8 with multiplication? And yes, you can. Okay, so 8 is going to be our smallest denominator that we can use. It's not the only one. We could also use 16, because 8 and 4 have a 16 in common. I could use 24, because 8 and 4 have a 24 in common. Okay, so we can use others. It's just I like using the smallest because it's less work. Okay, so we're going to rewrite our problem. And since we determined that our common denominator is going to be 24, I write 24 as my denominators. Now we ask, what did I do to 4 to turn it to a 24? Well, we multiplied by 6, so I do the same to the top. 3 times 6 gives us 18. What did I do to 8 to turn it to a 24? I multiplied by 3, so I multiply the 5 by 3 and get 15. Okay, so step 1, step 2 taken care of. Now step 3 is add our numerators. So we got 18 and 15, which gives us 33. We keep our denominator of 24. We add our whole parts, 5 and 6 make 11. And now last but not least, we simplify, okay? Now, in this particular case, you'll notice the fraction is bigger on top than it is on bottom. So that means it is a improper fraction. So we have to simplify that, okay? So let's take this 33 and over 24, and we'll take it over to the side, take it somewhere, and we'll do our division. So 33 divided by 24. Well, how many times does 24 go into 33? One whole time. 1 times 24 is 24, and we subtract, and we end up with 9 left over. Okay, so that means that it goes one whole time. So this 1 is going to go into the 11, because this means I've got 11 plus, because we know that this mixed number is a plus. We talked about that at the beginning of the lesson, plus 1 and 9 over 24. 1 and 9 24ths. Okay, so now this 11 and this 1, they can go together to make 12. And then we've got 9 over 24 left. Now we have to ask ourselves, we've got one form of simplifying left to do. Okay, do these two numbers have anything in common? Okay, could I divide them by the same number? And I can divide them by a 3. Okay, so if I divide this 9 by 3 and divide this 8 by 3, I end up with 12 and 3 over 8 as my final answer. And that's how you add or subtract mixed numbers. So let's try another one. Let's have you try one on your own. But this time, instead of adding, what are we doing? We're subtracting. You follow the same procedure that we just did. So pause the video and work that problem. Okay, so let's see how you did. Okay, on this one right here, the first step again is find a common denominator. So we start with our 9, and we go 9 times 1. Can I turn the 6 into a 9 using multiplication? No. 9 times 2 is 18. Can I turn the 6 into an 18? Yes, I can. So there's my common denominator. So I got 9, and then a fraction bar with an 18 on it, minus 4 with a fraction bar and 18. Okay, so now we change our numerators. What did I do to the 9 to turn it to an 18? By 2. So I multiply the 7 by 2 and get 14. 6 times 3. So 1 times 3, and I end up with 3. Now instead of adding our tops, we subtract our tops. So 14 take away 3 gives us 11 over 18. And then 9 take away 4 gives us 5. And we asked, does the 11 and the 18 have anything in common? No, they don't. So we're done. So to add or subtract mixed numbers, okay, what you got to remember is step number 1, find a common denominator. Step number 2, change your numerator to match. Step number 3, add or subtract your numerators. 4, keep your new denominator. 5, add or subtract your whole parts. And then last but not least, step 6, simplify. Until next time.